Today we're going to talk about the top 10 mistakes people make on their first safari. We have a series of videos talking about planning for your first safari, so I thought it would be interesting to kind of take a little contrarian view and talk about some of the mistakes people make. Well, we're going to do a top 10, and it's going to be starting with 10 being the least consequential to your hunt going well, and then going all the way down to the number one uh, biggest mistake people make on their first hunting safari. Here goes. Number 10, overpacking and or bringing the wrong clothes. So let's deal with overpacking first. When you go on a hunting safari, they're doing your laundry every day. So you don't need as much clothing as you might think. You really only need a couple changes of clothes, maybe a set of travel clothes, whatever suits you. But you don't need much. So most people on their second and third and fourth safaris, they've pared that list down. They have way less clothing in the bag, and way less other things too. Overpacking doesn't just mean clothing; it can mean all the other things that you've thrown in your bag that you just thought you couldn't live without for a week or 10 days. Another thing to keep in mind is everybody talks about Africa being hot, and it is hot. You know, we have the term Africa hot. It's Africa hot. That is true, absolutely true. But where most of us hunt, in the season that we hunt in, it's normally quite cold, and it can be freezing. So again, not packing the right clothes, thinking that you need shorts and t-shirts when you really need several different layers of hoodies and some kind of jacket that's pretty substantial. So those are the kind of things that you've got to work out with your outfitter and looking at the calendar, the time of year you're going, and what you need to pack. All right, number 9, having the wrong expectations or too rigid a list of trophy animals that you want to hunt. So I may be a little out of line with what I'm about to say, but how would you know what you want to hunt when you go on your first safari? It's a first safari. You've never been there before. So sure, you may have an idea of a certain really special trophies that you'd like to have on the wall when you get home, but having a specific animal on the wall and the hunt itself can be two totally different things. And so my advice is to not have too tight of a list. That's one reason I recommend a package for people on their first safari, because what you'll find in a very short period of time, once you got boots on the ground, is that there's different animals that live in different habitats, and there's a different method for hunting each of them. It can be quite interesting to see how there's certain animals that live up on top of the mountain, and there's certain animals that live down in the little riverine areas. You're not going to find a bush buck in the same habitat as a blessed buck. And so keep that in mind. Have a little flexibility in what your expectations are, your wants and wishes. And one thing to round out this portion of it is to listen to your pH. If the pH says that there's a really good trophy animal that he suggests you go after, if it's something you have any interest at all in hunting, please take his advice and go hunt that animal. I think when the story is told around the campfire later on, you'll be glad that you did. Number 8. Now here's where I'm going to get a little passionate. Not bringing your own rifle on safari. I get so sick and tired of hearing people say, "Oh, just use a camp gun. You can borrow a gun," because it's too difficult to take your own gun overseas on a big hunt. Folks, that's complete nonsense, and that's done by people who are either fearful or people who have failed to plan and hasn't taken the advice of people who've been many times. Yes, there could be circumstances where you might want to borrow a gun. I'm not saying that there's never a circumstance where you would borrow a gun. There are places in the world where it is prudent to borrow a gun. Southern Africa is not one of them. It's quite easy to take your own gun. One of the things that I'm going to point out along with this is using a qualified travel agent. A travel agent who specializes in sending hunters overseas and knows the laws, knows the airlines, and knows the procedures for taking a rifle on an airplane across the ocean to go on a big hunt. Many of those people who are telling you to borrow a gun are ones who either them or somebody they know has not used a travel agent and gotten in trouble along the way, and then that's it. They are the ambassador for use a camp gun, and they couldn't be more wrong. I don't want you to do all this planning and preparation and dreaming of Africa and this big hunt and not take your own gun. It's part of the experience. It's very easy to do. I've got videos on that subject that will help you to check all the boxes and take your own gun. But use a qualified travel agent and take your own gun on safari. Okay, number 7, taking the wrong gun. So we're talking about we're going to take a gun. Okay, I hope so. Taking the wrong gun. Here's some advice you hear given often that I want to push back on just a little bit. You'll often hear people say, just take your deer gun, you'll be fine. What does that mean? What's your deer gun? Mine's a 223 here at the ranch. When I was a kid growing up, my older brothers had, 2 of them had 22 250s and one had a 243. Would that be an ideal caliber to take on safari, to go take down a zebra or an eland? No, sir, it would not. So let's put some caveats in there. If your deer gun is a 308 or a 30-06 or a 7 mag or a 300 Winchester, even better, you're going to be fine. Sure, there's a lot of different calibers that will do the job in Africa. But for me personally, my recommendation to you is going to be 7 mag or higher. Heavier bullets, something in that 150, 160 grain bullet would be the bottom end for me. I'm not a big fan of some of the light and fast. It'll kill animals, sure, but sometimes you get into different size animals and your smaller animals are just blown to pieces. So do some studying on that. See what gun is going to be the one that you like. But let's take our own gun on safari. Let's take the right gun. Okay, number 6 on our list, to go along with our previous 2, wrong bullet selection. So again, we said oftentimes the advice is to just take the deer gun that you're comfortable with, which can be good advice. But I'm certainly going to challenge the bullet selection. The bullet that we've always used at home to hunt little bitty old white-tailed deer here in Texas may not be the right bullet. So let's take a look at bullet selection. Let's use a premium bullet. There's so many good ones out there. I'm not going to go into a whole bunch. I'll just give you 2 that really work for me. My number 1 is Barnes TSX in whatever caliber. I've used it in I don't know how many calibers. And then of course the Swift A-frame. And then if you're in certain situations where there's thinner skinned game involved, and maybe like on a recent leopard hunt, the Swift Sirocco 2 was the go-to bullet, and boy, it did the job. So let's match the bullet to the animals we're hunting, and let's dig in a little further on that. We may not want the off-the-shelf from the hardware store that Daddy used for deer at the ranch. Okay, number 5, we're halfway through our list. Number 5 is taking advice from anybody who's only been once. Because, let me explain why. Because if you've been once, you come back on this high. I mean, it's a life-changing experience. We all think it, before the trip, we think it's a once in a lifetime. And as soon as we're on the airplane coming home, we're planning our second safari. It is a life-changing experience. It's so exciting. And so what you want to do is let that guy that's been once just channel his energy and enjoy the experience he had. But let's not take his advice, because what it leads into is hero worship. He's been once, and his pH is the best on the continent of Africa. This happens over and over, and those of us that have been a lot, we do tend to giggle a little bit when you hear some people talking about how their pH was the best, but they'd only hunted with one. And so let's be careful about hero worship. We don't want to get into that. Let's enjoy that conversation with the folks that have been once, because they are on that high and they're wanting to go back, and they can be a lot of fun to talk to. But their advice is going to be skewed because they've been with one outfitter and one pH, and that's all. Okay, number 4 on our list is choosing an outfitter, choosing the right outfitter to match up with the way you want to hunt and what you want to do. I do have a video on this, on our video series. We'll put a link to that for you to help you contemplate the outfitter you're going with. But you do want to ask a lot of questions. You want to make a plan with a list of what you want to do. There's some questions that are good questions. There's some questions that are not good questions. A lot of those are going to be covered in that video. One of the things you can do to kind of separate out the outfitters that are well established, that have a great reputation, and are just solid folks, is to come to the Safari Club convention in Nashville. It's held every year in Nashville, Tennessee. The big Safari Club convention will have a gigantic number of exhibitors where you can meet them in person and you can talk about that safari. You can kind of see how you match up with the people, find out about their property, find out how big it is, how many different places they hunt, what kind of animals they have to offer, and of course, the price. You know, we all want to know how much is it going to cost. And so go talk to a few people. But selecting an outfitter, number one, watch the video in the link. Number two, come to Safari Club in Nashville. Come to the big convention. And it's a big trip. It's worth it to go and spend that time in Nashville. Sit down face to face with outfitters so you find the right one for you and for what you want for that first great adventure to Africa. Number three, maybe another one that causes a little controversy. But let me tell you, you don't want to buy a donated hunt from an outfitter you don't know for your first safari. I have been on 2 donated hunts that I bought at auctions. One was fantastic, one was a disaster. So if there's a 50% chance of things going badly, do you want that for your first great adventure to Africa? My advice is no. Now, the caveat to that is if you know this outfitter, you've already been to some of the conventions, you've been in touch with them, you know their reputation, you maybe know somebody that's gone with them, and then you choose to buy this donated hunt. But what I get all the time on social media is somebody puts a post, has anybody ever hunted with XYZ outfitter? The reason they're asking that question is because they bought a donated hunt. Let me explain further the donated hunts on auction these days. There's 2 different types. There's one that is a true donated hunt. In other words, a full package, 10 days, 8 animals, something like that. At least 7 days and 6 or 7 animals. Completely donated, no bait and switch. That is a true donated safari. The other one is simply a marketing plan for the outfitter. He uses a donated safari with 5 days and a blessed buck and an impala. And he'll give out an unlimited number of those. If you ask for 1,000 of them, he'll give you 1,000 of them because it's part of his marketing. It's not truly a donation. It is a bait and switch. It is just that little teaser to get you to come and go on that safari. So if you want to buy a donated hunt, please do your research. Don't buy the donated hunt and then start doing your research. I've helped people in some cases where they were better off to just go with the outfitter I recommend and consider that donated hunt, that donation a donation, and say goodbye to that outfitter because they wouldn't work with them, they wouldn't be able to meet their expectations, and they had to just chalk that up as a pure donation. So I don't want that to happen to you. So be cautious buying a donated hunt, and please don't do it for your first safari. Okay, number 2, not practicing off sticks enough. We've got to get out at home, on the range, at a friend's place, whatever you can do, even just dry firing, even just in the backyard. Let's get on shooting sticks. Let's find out what kind of shooting sticks our outfitter likes to use. There's the traditional tripods, and then there's also the new quad sticks that we all love. So let's practice with them. And like I said before, don't discount the value of just that muscle memory of getting on the sticks and dry firing your rifle and getting familiar with them, setting them up yourself. Although when you're on the hunt, probably somebody's going to set them up for you. But let's be competent to get on those sticks ourselves. And then as we get closer to the hunt, let's really get out there and run some rounds down range off sticks. This is probably the number one thing that you can do to practice for the actual hunt itself to be successful. We've talked about a lot of other things, but this one is one that is just really, really critical. Spend the time. I've got a video on shooting sticks, but there's not a lot to it. Go look at the different kinds, borrow some, get out to the range with a buddy, and go have fun. That's part of the fun of safari, is getting ready for it. So get out there and practice off shooting sticks. Okay, we're to the end of our list. Number 1, or in other words, the biggest mistake people make on their first safari. And this can go for people on their second and third and fourth ought to know better. People that are travel veterans and ought to know better. If you want to take home with you recovered bullets from your animals, empty shell casings, anything of the like, I know and you know that those are inert pieces of brass and or some monometal or lead. You could put them in your backpack and take them home with you, but legally you just can't. You're going to cause trouble in Africa. So let's put all the recovered bullets, all empty shell casings in our locked ammo box right where they came when we went to Africa. Let's do the same thing for the way home. And if you're going to use, side note, if you're going to use your backpack that is a carry-on for your flying across the ocean as your hunting day pack, here's my rule. You're going to unload it and unzip every zipper. And you're going to shake it and you're going to go through it and make sure there's nothing in it and repack it. And then my second piece of advice on that is to have your hunting buddy also go through the bag. Both of you gone through it, completely empty, then we repack for the way home. You don't want to be that guy that gets stopped in the airport with a bullet that's from your kudu that you just can't part with. You want to take that home as a souvenir, and I don't blame you. I do it too. But that bullet and those empties have got to go in your ammo box, locked away nicely for the way home. Folks, I do these videos to try to answer questions and try to help people, and this one I hope helps keep you out of trouble. So as you're planning that first safari or maybe that second or third safari, seek out advice from safari veterans, people that have been many times, and follow some of these instructions and go to Africa and have a great safari.